Hello. Hello, this is the My Artifact episode number 4184. Today's date is July 31, 2026. It's been almost like a night at 10:14 p.m. Alright, let's just jump into the question. Alright, let's go. Okay, so question is, what should Adam learn from every artifact? Alright. First of all, what exactly is this question and why am I asking this question to myself? I wanted to build Adam. What is Adam? Adam is an AI that could predict the future. Why you are wanting to build such an AI that could predict the future? It is because of that I realized that when you try to execute any kind of like a plan or any kind of like a something actions or any kind of like a implementation or any kind of like a laws or any kind of like a something like a policy change or things and that you are not really aware of that what might gonna happen, like basically is this thing the lawmaker or kind of like a any kind of like a people who are kind of like a deciding something which kind of like impact on thousands of people or millions of people or things and that you need to aware of all the possible consequences might gonna happen, even if the your laws or your policies are kind of like a somewhat something noble, but still somehow it kind of like a something backfire. It not only work with a kind of like a something the people who are policymaker, but also kind of like a decision making, like a company who kind of like a decide something regarding about their profit and loss and things and that every executions, every kind of like actions, every kind of like a decision really required kind of like a multiple consequences. Okay, it's not just kind of like a something win and lose, it's not kind of like a loss and win, it's not really something that key there are so many possible things will gonna happen. If you are kind of like a some decision, it might gonna impact on people, impact on your product, impact on your surrounding. It is really essential to understand possible consequences. Okay, yeah. Adam is the AI that could predict the future, who could kind of like a something look through all the possible consequences and kind of like giving you a kind of like a best possible way to kind of like execute your plan with less and less damage and less and less kind of like a something resistance and kind of like have more chances of getting more successful. Okay, to kind of like a decision and things and that, the decision making process and things and that. So that's why I am kind of like a building such AI that could predict the future. It not only gonna add value, it will gonna add value to the entire humanity. Yeah, it is. So that's why I'm kind of like a building such a AI that could predict the future. Before I wanted to build such a AI that could predict the future, I wanted to aware of all the possible consequences. And how do I supposed to aware of that? By asking question to myself. So I went to ChatGPT. I said that yeah, I wanted to build such a AI that could predict the future, suggest me all the possible consequences in question format. ChatGPT kind of like suggests me all the hundreds of possible consequences in question format. This is one of those questions. Now regarding about this question says that what should Adam learn from every artifact? Okay. Now regarding about this question, first of all, what is exactly the artifact? Okay. I already explained multiple times regarding about the artifact, but still I again kind of like explain something. Okay. So artifact is a kind of like a foundation of Adam. Like Adam can predict the possible future. It is only because of artifact. If there is no artifact, it cannot predict the possible future. Wait. I step on the like there is no water. Shit. Yeah. Actually, my dog peed. Like my dog kind of like urinate at a place, a kind of like a things, and while I was kind of like a walking, I was not really aware of that, and I step on it, and because of this, my leg got kind of like a something urinate. Yeah, Probably. Should I wash it? Yeah, I have to wash it. Just like I don't like the smell of urination. Yeah. Just pause it for a while. Alright? Alright. Okay. Yeah. Sorry about the disturbance. Did I unpause it? Oh, actually, I never paused it. Okay, let's jump into it. Okay, so what was I saying? Artifact. Yeah. What is exactly the artifact? Okay. So artifact is a kind of like a people who record, like a basically it's a artifact is a kind of like a diary. It's a audio diary. Okay, yeah. Like people kind of like simply record what exactly happened throughout the day, things and that, and they kind of like put a lot of frustration and stuff like that, whatever. Okay, yeah. First of all, why does people gonna do that thing? Yeah. Why? Because of that key. Usually peoples are kind of like a very much like a went through a lot of stuff. They really required someone so that they would kind of like a talk. They would kind of like a simply just blunt out and things and that and that. Usually kind of like a particular person might be there, like their girlfriend or wife or husband or boyfriend, usually kind of like a simply available for that particular consequences, but usually not most of the time. Okay, yeah. Most of the time we just kind of like a dump our thoughts, like we don't really dump, or we just kind of like a put inside of us. Okay, and we didn't really kind of like a let it out and things and that and that. Artifact or recording that audio artifact is a kind of like a giving that opportunity to kind of like a simply giving that opportunity to people to blunt it out everything, whatever their thoughts and things that they have, they just kind of like a blunt out. They just kind of like open the application, put the record button, start saying things that they wanted to say. But make sure that they will not gonna share any kind of like a personal detail, their name or things, nothing at all. Okay, they just kind of like tell their story. Okay. Now, why does people will kind of like do that thing? Because they feel something really good. Okay, yeah. Like while recording artifact, like right now I'm kind of like a recording artifact for past 11 years. I'm recording artifact every single day. Why am I kind of like doing it that? Because it kind of like give me freedom. It kind of like give me that opportunity to kind of like something that key be free to be kind of like a talk the whatever stuff inside of me. I just kind of like let it out and things and that and that. And that kind of like a freedom that you feel when you record the artifact, you kind of like feel that key. Oh, all right. Now this is also a platform where people could supposed to be listen other people artifact too. Okay, yeah. But without any names and things and that and that. That's why I mentioned that people will shouldn't supposed to be record their artifact, but they shouldn't supposed to be put their name and things, nothing really at all. Privacy should supposed to be maintained. Okay. So it is a kind of like a platform. It's a kind of like a YouTube, a kind of like a YouTube that you could upload your video. Other people see the video. Same thing. You record your artifact. Other people could listen your artifact. All right. So that is the artifact. All right. Now the question is that what should Adam learn from every artifact. Okay, so specifically, now do you understand what exactly the Adam, what exactly the artifact? Now let's understand the Adam. Now Adam, it can predict the future. Okay, now it sounds so kind of like a very futuristic and kind of like a very unrealistic and things and that, but let me kind of like tell you, let me kind of like simply make it clear regarding about something, regarding about what exactly what I'm trying to say. Okay, by the way, right now these are the empty words. Okay, I'm not really sure what will I do supposed to do in the future, because maybe like I'm not really sure what might gonna happen. Yeah, but I'm kind of like tell you like this is what kind of like a planning inside of me. Okay, yeah. Right now this is what I think about that might gonna happen. I'm not really sure about the future. All right, yeah, but still, what exactly happened? Okay, how does kind of like a something that key Adam can predict the future? Okay, first of all, let's just understand the artifact, because artifact is a kind of like a foundation. It's a stepping stone. If you don't understand the artifact, you don't understand the Adam. Let's understand the artifact. Artifact is a kind of like a people who kind of like a record their artifact and things and that and that. All right. Now, basically, why does people should supposed to be record artifact every single day? Because of that, they will continuously record artifact every single day, because they kind of like a feel something really good. I wanted to kind of like a simply, I wanted that people should supposed to record artifact as a kind of like a habit, not a kind of like a simply that they wanted to say. Because when it kind of like a became habit, they will kind of like a record the artifact every single day. Sometimes they will kind of like a record the artifact twice in a day and things and that, because it kind of like a make them feel something really good and things and that. All right. Now, basically, this thing, when those people will kind of like a record the artifact, let's just say a particular person who's kind of like a recording artifact for past almost like a 5 year. Okay, yeah. So imagine a 5 year, that means like a within a year it kind of like a record 300 artifact. Like there are almost like a 365, but instead of 365, he recorded almost like a 300 artifact. 65 artifact he kind of like a skip because of something. Okay, whatever. We kind of like a simply skip that thing. So 300 artifact that particular person record within a year. Within a 5 year, how many artifact that he might gonna record? 5 into 3, that means 15, like a 1500 artifact. Sorry, yeah, 1500 artifact that particular person record within a 5 year. All right. Now, basically, is this thing that when he record something about his life, his things, and that, whatever. Adam, he try to understand what exactly that particular person, who is that, like who they will not, like Adam will not kind of like assembly try to determine who is that particular person. No, Adam will try to track his behavior, that how it is behavior, what he thinks, when he got angry, what he might gonna do, when he got sad, what he might gonna do, what he is a kind of like assembly angry, or what is actually your opinion regarding about politics, regarding about tech, regarding about relationship, regarding about money, regarding about the life, regarding about the kind of like a people, regarding about the government, regarding about the lot of things. Okay, yeah. So basically, Adam will try to kind of like create his virtual profile regarding about his behavior. Okay, yeah. Let me tell you one thing. Adam will does not recognize by his name, because Adam does not know who is that particular person. Okay, Adam will kind of like recognize by this token number. Okay, yeah, kind of like a somewhat certain token number. Okay, this is a kind of like a token number of this kind of like a simply the user ID 43 something. Okay, yeah, and he is kind of like Adam will kind of like simply try to create his behavioral pattern regarding how is that particular person. Now, how that Adam will kind of like create that behavioral personality by kind of like assembly accessing his artifact and kind of like assembly try to understand that particular person. Okay, yeah. So Adam does not do for only one person. Adam do this thing for every person. Let's just say in the artifact might be, let's just say kind of like a 2 billion or 3 billion people are kind of like a recording artifact. So Adam will track all 3 billions of people's of what they think, what they thinks, what they stuff and stuff like that. Okay, yeah. And Adam will try to create his all the 3 billion people of virtual kind of like a simply identity, virtual kind of like a behavior, virtual kind of like a a digital copy regarding about that what they might gonna behave and things, what exactly stuff and stuff like that regarding about like Adam will like it's an analytic point of perspective. Adam will try to kind of like create some things and that. And because of it has a kind of like a massive amount of data, almost like a 2-3 billions of artifacts and 2-3 billions of peoples and things and that, it kind of like a create the digital world. Okay, imagine as a kind of like a simply the GTA 5 a game. In the GTA 5 all the NPC character are kind of like a, simply just a NPC character. They don't really have any kind of like emotion, they don't really have any background story, they don't really have anything at all. They just kind of like a simply do whatever the kind of like a developer kind of like a put the codes and things and that. But what if we could kind of like a put the personality over there into the every NPC character? Okay, yeah. So if we put the personality, they will kind of like a behave exactly like as a kind of like a only humans and things and that. So same thing, Adam will try like GTA example is a kind of like a somewhat something of visual experience, a visual kind of example that I'm trying to tell you. But Adam will kind of like a create the digital world, kind of like a GTA 5, but not as a that much render and things like that. It's a kind of like a something create a digital world. Okay, yeah, like literally replica of world. Okay, replica of world, and with the kind of like assembly all the 3 billion people who has a kind of like a recorded artifact and things like that, they have kind of like assembly over there. Okay, yeah. By the way, Adam does not know who is that particular person, nothing really at all. So in that digital world they will kind of like recognize by the token number and things and that. Okay, something like that, because they are kind of like somewhat something token number. Okay, now Adam can try to create that digital world. Okay, now that digital world use as a kind of like a something as a kind of like a trial room. Okay, because this digital world is a kind of like a you can do anything, you could kind of like somebody track the behavior, track the kind of like every decision. Like let's just say like we kind of like created this digital world. Okay, now that digital world is kind of like a became more and more stronger when Adam has a more and more data. So with respect to time, when so many people are kind of like a recording artifact and so many people are kind of like a recording artifact, so more and more artifact will kind of like a get into the database of Adam database. Adam will try to kind of like a track the data and kind of like a make that digital world as close to the real world as is possible. Okay, okay, if you're kind of like imagine real world means kind of like a GTA 5, no, it's not that. Okay, I'm kind of like giving you GTA 5 is a example as a for reference point of perspective so that you might gonna understand. All right, okay, now what exactly happened that key when the Adam created that digital world, now whatever the kind of like a user, like basically the people who are kind of like using the Adam for predicting the possible future and things and that. Okay, so let's imagine a particular person, let's just say a policy maker who wanted to execute a kind of like a policy in specifically in India. Okay, now what is actually the policy? The policy regarding about, let's say, a garbage. Okay, garbage would be kind of like a much more better. Okay, so basically this thing that he let's kind of like simply determine that he Indian government decided that ki because of the plastic is a kind of like a very harmful thing, and because of it cannot decompose and things and that. So Indian government decided that ki we just ban the plastic. Okay, we are not allowed the plastic and things and that. We just completely not gonna use the plastic. Okay, so basically if we are not started using the plastic, then the kind of like simply the particular person who wanted to kind of like think that ki, okay, what if we cannot use the plastic, then what might gonna happen? Okay, so basically that policy maker kind of like put that prompt that ki basically I wanted that ki in my country people shouldn't supposed to be use the plastic and things and that. Okay, so if the people who are not using the plastic specifically in India, so what might gonna happen? Okay, so because of Adam kind of like a create the simulation program. Okay, create the simulation in multiple point of perspective. Okay, so basically what might gonna happen? Okay, so first of all is that he understand the data. Okay, so basically we have the data about the people. Okay, also Adam does have data regarding about the world too. Okay, we need a kind of like a two kind of like a data. Okay, for kind of like doing the simulation. First data is a people's of data, people behavior and things like that. That data is actually come from the artifact. Okay, now another kind of like a data, that data is a kind of like a only machine data or maybe surrounding data, like how the system work, how the machine work, how the kind of like assembly, the kind of like assembly, the government work, how the kind of like assembly any organization work and things and that. And that data is actually came from internet scraping and things and that. Okay, so basically Adam have two kind of like a data. First of all, data is human behavior data. That data is actually come from artifact. Another data is a kind of like the internet tracking data, like basically internet scraping data, that how the system work and things and that. Basically this thing what I wanted to kind of like that digital world should supposed to be as much as close to the real world. Okay, yeah. Means every functionality, everything, it should supposed to be replica of exact world. Okay, and things and that. So basically what is gonna happen if I kind of like put the prompt that key, what if I ban the plastic from my country, let's just say India. So basically what does Adam will gonna do? Adam will try to understand that can we able to do this thing if we kind of like ban the plastic. First of all, Adam try to multiple consequences, basically try multiple things. Like first of all, it try first directly that key just completely ban. Okay, yeah. Then what might gonna happen? So basically is this thing, people might gonna use a kind of like a conventional way of kind of like a packaging, like a paper and things and that. Okay, yeah. Now paper is actually come from the tree. Okay, yeah. Obviously is this thing that we need a kind of like that much amount of paper, so we have to cut a lot of trees. Okay, and because of we are cutting the trees, then it create more pollutions and things and that. So consequences number one got fail. Consequences number two, instead of kind of like using a paper, we should started making a kind of like a paper with a kind of like some different material. Like basically is this thing, there is a kind of like some the garbage are already available, or maybe something that he maybe like basically there are so many kind of like a material. Instead of kind of like using a kind of like a paper, we are kind of started using a kind of like a mixture of paper with a another kind of like a stuff and things and that, and use as a kind of like a carry bag. Okay, yeah. Try to implement this thing, what might gonna affect, basically it try multiple consequences, one consequences, two consequences, three consequences, hundreds, thousands, millions of consequences it kind of like a went through. Okay, yeah. And even if we found a kind of like a way to not to use plastic in the India, but also understand what might gonna consequences will gonna happen throughout the time. Okay, yeah. Like if you're not using the plastic, then what might gonna happen, what exactly economy will gonna impact, how many people will gonna affect, what exactly consequences happen, how many people will kind of like a die, how many people will kind of like a leave, how many pollution will gonna create, is it kind of like a pollution we create, does we kind of like a stop it or not. Or instead of kind of like that, we have started using a plastic, but also kind of like invented a kind of like a method of degradation that we could kind of like degrade the plastic. So basically it doesn't really make, so that we shouldn't supposed to be have that kind of like a things that we should supposed to be kind of like a stop using the plastic and things and that, because we have kind of like invented a technique so that we could kind of like degrade the plastic and things and that. So do you understand now? Adam will run all the possible consequences, not only one or two, thousands, millions of possible consequences. Okay, millions of consequences to find that how do we supposed to reduce the plastic, or how do we supposed to think and that. Okay, yeah. So because of Adam kind of like a goes through millions of consequences, it will gonna found a way that could kind of like somebody predict that this is the way that kind of like somebody we will kind of like face little bit less problem, and also we're gonna achieve the things that we wanted to. Okay, and that is a kind of like somebody called predicting the possibility. Adam tried to predict the possible future, what might gonna happen if we kind of like stop using the plastic, then what might gonna happen and things and that. And because of that prediction model, we could kind of like refine our execution plan much more better way to kind of like make sure that implementation should supposed to be happen, so that in the real world we might not gonna face that many issues. Because I realize that in today's world we kind of like execute as any kind of like a plan or execution with as a sense of nobleness, but it kind of like a backfire. Okay, not only regarding about the policy, but as also kind of like only the institution level, company level, or kind of like a things and that the decision that we took, it might gonna kind of like a backfire and stuff like that. Adam will try to reduce that thing. Adam will try to kind of like simply not to do this thing, not to kind of like have stuff like that. Okay, yeah. So that is the kind of like a things, and that's how the kind of like Adam will kind of like learn from every artifact. Okay, yeah. By the way, it sounds so kind of like a crazy and things and that, but that is not. Okay, because the stuff that I'm kind of like saying this thing, I'm not really sure how it will gonna happen because these are empty words. I don't know how do I supposed to make. Like these are just my ideas and things I'm trying to represent, but when I will try to implement Adam, I don't know what will gonna happen. Okay, I don't know. Okay, another thing is that na ki because I'm kind of like accessing the people data, almost like I need at least like a 3 to 4 billions of people of artifact have almost like a like yeah like a basically I need kind of like so much amount of data. Okay, the problem is that ki most of the government will not gonna letting me to access their citizen of data, even if that data is actually mine, but still it's not mine, it's a kind of like their citizen of data, but still I cannot able to access my database of data, and I can't access that thing because government will kind of like somebody say this thing that no, we will not allow you to access our citizen of data to kind of like run your Adam and things and that, which is also true by the way. Okay, because they have kind of like a concern that thing, because if I created such a platform or such a kind of like a AI that could predict the future, that means I would kind of like dominate the world. Yeah, literally I would kind of like dominate the world. Like basically I, because of I have kind of like a source data or kind of like a code or something like that, I could kind of like do a lot of things. Like basically like because of I'm kind of like from India, so I might gonna be favor for the Indian people. Okay, and instead of that I would kind of like not gonna do favor for the kind of like US people or any other things and that. Or maybe I'm kind of like using Adam for my own purposes. Like basically is this thing that key like how do I supposed to stop the competition or things and that and that and that and that and that. Okay, like basically Adam has a kind of like so many adverse effect and so many kind of like so many not so adverse effect. Like yeah, people might gonna utilize for wrong reason and right reason too. Like first of all is that instead of kind of like went to the people, government will kind of like ask me that you are kind of like creating such a product that might gonna predict the future. How we are kind of like so sure that you will not gonna use this platform, this kind of like a product for not to harm us or not to kind of like somebody kind of like a destroy their country or company or things and that. Because their concern is kind of like 100% genuine. Okay, and I'm not kind of like somebody say this. I don't really have any kind of like answer for that. But basically, is this thing na ki yeah like I don't right now. I don't really have any kind of like some answer. Okay, so if the government will kind of like letting you to not access their data, not access their citizen data, would you not kind of like do implement the Adam? Well, basically is this thing na ki the structure of Adam I will gonna create without the data. Okay, data is really essential to predict the possible consequences. Okay, if I have less of data, like a millions of artifact, I might not be kind of like a predict as quickly as kind of like something as refined future it would be. My prediction model might not gonna predict that much well. Like basically is this thing regarding about possibility, it might gonna show us maybe kind of like a 40% or maybe 30% of prediction might gonna happen. 30% prediction is not really good. I need at least like a basically 90 to 95% of prediction rate, so that I would gonna genuinely kind of like a think that ki, okay, the Adam might gonna useful and things like that. Because maybe 30% of prediction ratio kind of like I would define by the kind of like a policymaker, because policymaker also can predict the possible future with the 30, 40, 50%. Okay, they also think, because they kind of like have that much knowledge regarding about what might gonna people do with their kind of like stuff and stuff like that. Okay, I'm kind of like building such a product that could kind of like predict as close to the kind of like assembly at least 90-95% of prediction possibilities, so that it would kind of like implement much more better way. Okay, but still government will not gonna letting me to. This is also kind of like a biggest issue and things and that. And I also very genuinely concerned regarding about the government. They also think that thing too. But like basically is this thing na ki I don't know, am I wrong, am I stupid, I don't know, but I think that na ki okay, let me kind of like tell you something. Okay, so let's take a internet technology. Okay, when the dot-com bubble is actually like a rise up, people are kind of like went crazy, and people are kind of like started using this technology for very very wrong purposes. Okay, like some people kind of like sharing some sort of photo videos or intimate videos or maybe something like that, that is not really made for dot-com bubble like internet. Okay, yeah. Internet is actually made for information transfer or kind of like a communication or things and that, but people are kind of like utilizing this technology for wrong purposes, and this is what kind of like something happened, that people are kind of like utilizing every new technology for wrong purposes. Same thing happened with the AI. It will gonna same thing happen with the Adam too. People might gonna utilize for wrong purposes too. And sometimes it's just not wrong purposes. Sometimes people are kind of like so scary regarding about that stuff. People might gonna say, people completely reject that thing. People will gonna say this thing that ki Adam is a kind of like a somebody, we do not need Adam, and just do not build, and we will not kind of like a give you that data so that you would kind of like a somebody build the future or kind of like a predict the future and things and that. It's a kind of like a lot of kind of like some risk. Okay, usually is this thing that na ki government wants stability. If and stability comes from the kind of like a stability actually come from the kind of like everyone particular person is a kind of like a somewhat something common. If one particular person have a kind of like a so much amount of immense amount of power, then people are kind of like a really much scared from that particular person. Okay, like this is what it is. This is what kind of like simply the world that we are kind of like simply living. Okay, like basically imagine that ki tomorrow you are started flying, or kind of like somebody you have a kind of like a power of magneto so that you would kind of like lift the object without touching them. People kind of like somebody scared of you. Like you decided that I will gonna use my power for like a better humanity and things and that, but still people still scared of you. Okay, yeah. And because of people kind of like scared of you, they kind of like stop you, they kind of like somebody the add resistance and things and which is very much common, like really really common. Okay, so yeah, if I could kind of like create such a AI that could predict the future, obviously people are kind of like really scared of it. Government will definitely gonna scared of it, and they will gonna say this thing that we will not kind of like letting you have the data so that you would kind of like predict the future and things and that. Yeah. By the way, this is the kind of like another battle that I have to fight with it. Important thing is that build the tool, build the AI. Okay, yeah. Obviously, is this thing that na ki, okay, what I realized that na ki the one of the most important question is that ki why are you making it? Okay, yeah. Like who told you that? Who told you kind of like you have to make your AI that could predict the future and things and that. Well, basically no one, but the kind of like that na ki we are arrive in that era or that time that we could predict the future. Like I know it's a kind of like basically from heard like a basic listening point of perspective, it sound so stupid and so like a futuristic and unrealistic and things and that, but that is true. Okay, yeah. With the data, we could do lot of things. Like basically, why do we have analytics? Okay, why can kind of like somebody do analytics and things and that. Like basically, people kind of like analytics regarding about the kind of like what exactly analytics do. Okay, like there are kind of like a bunch of people who kind of like say I'm the business analysis or I'm kind of like a financial analysis or whatever it is. Okay, what exactly analysis does? Analysis is kind of like analyze the data from past behavior and try not to make the mistake in the future, and try to figure it out what kind of like assembly work and what is might not work. Example, let's just say I am the kind of like a financial analytic. Okay, yeah. My firm is kind of like a investing kind of like a money on things and that. So because of I have a kind of like a track data regarding about the past behavior of financial things, so I would know that key on which kind of like a stock should I supposed to be buy and which stock should I supposed to be sell, because of that key their profitability, functionality, and how much it impact on the people and things like that. So people might gonna say invest in Tesla, invest in Google, invest in Netflix, because those are companies are kind of like a booming. But we shouldn't supposed to be kind of like a invest in money in something like that key, like basically real estate or things like that, because yeah, real estate is also really good, but it depends on location. Okay, like which kind of like a real estate. New York, good. Las Vegas, good. But if you're wanting to kind of like a doing real estate in kind of like a somebody like a tier 3 city or local city, then investing real estate might not be give you that much returns and things and that. Whatever, I'm kind of like giving you just an example point of perspective. But what I'm saying is that na, because of I don't really have that much information, but whatever the information that I have, I could able to predict that na, where should I supposed to be invest, where should I not supposed to be invest and things and that. Okay, and I don't really have that much information. So basically, your prediction is a kind of like a much more stronger with how much information that you have. Okay, and this is what analytics do. Okay, analytics kind of like they have massive data regarding about that key, what is actually work in the past and things and that, and they are trying to kind of like find such a way that kind of like all right, to kind of like making sure their execution is kind of like as much as better and things and that, right? Okay, now kind of like try to replace analytics from human to AI, because AI is a kind of like somebody gather millions of information at one time, and it could kind of like analytics, or it could analyze millions of data within a kind of like a seconds or fraction of minute and things and that. So it could kind of like predict much more better result and things like that. Same thing goes with Adam. Adam is a kind of like even more stronger thing. Okay, Adam kind of like analyze the human behavioral data and try to implement the functionality regarding about what might gonna happen in prediction future. I will not gonna be the only company who would kind of like predict the future. Google might be that particular company might gonna predict the future. Like probably they do have okay, like basically is this thing. Okay, do you think, like if you think AI means ChatGPT, what kind of like image that you kind of like get if I'm gonna say AI? Most of people might gonna say ChatGPT. Okay, which is true by the way, because AI is a kind of like a mostly firstly introduced by the ChatGPT, not a Google. But you are wrong. Google is already before the ChatGPT already kind of like somebody created a AI. Okay, they called it Bard. Okay, not Bard by the way, like basically DeepMind. Okay, like basically they already knew that they could able to be kind of like a create such a technology, kind of like artificial intelligence. Okay, there is a kind of like a report, a name I don't know, maybe I'm not really sure. I like this is kind of like a report is kind of like somebody the published way early before the AI boom. Like a AI boom is actually happened with the ChatGPT in 2022. But this report is kind of like a published in 2016 or 2014. I'm not really sure about that. But this report is a kind of like a mention that ki Google is already achieved that technology that could kind of like a something that ki work as artificial intelligence and things and that. But they didn't really implement to the people. Why? Because they kind of like a thing that they don't want it to be a kind of like a first early mover, because of that key marketing point of perspective and things and that. Because if the most of people are kind of like searching through AI, then very less people will kind of like use their Google, because Google is a kind of like most of people actually searching for. Okay, so they might kind of like create a kind of like a product that might gonna kind of like giving the competition to the Google. Okay, even if the product is their own. So that's why they kind of like really much scared and things and that. So they didn't like kind of like somebody publish to the people and things and that. Okay, and because of this thing, Elon Musk is kind of like really scared and things and that, and that's why that Elon Musk is kind of like started investing money on OpenAI. Then OpenAI and kind of like Elon Musk kind of like had a breakup and things and that, and then OpenAI kind of like somebody realized that no, we have to be through this thing. So OpenAI kind of like invest some amount of money with the kind of like a public welfare and things and that, and they would kind of like started this company called ChatGPT in 2022. Okay, so basically it's this thing. That's why we kind of like a new ChatGPT is as a kind of like a first early mover as a AI, but actually the Google is the first one who kind of like somebody that build that technology. Okay, like AI and things and that. So basically it's this thing that na ki I will be not a particular first one who could kind of like build such a model that could predict the future. By the way, till now, when I'm kind of like I'm recording at 31 July 2026. I'm pretty much sure that Google is already developed such a AI that could predict the future. I'm pretty much sure, because Google has a kind of like massive data, dude. Like basically it has, okay, massive data, where it come from? Google has a kind of like an Android which can access almost like a 70% of population, like any one particular person who's kind of using a smartphone in nowadays, almost like a 70 to 80% of people are using Android. Okay, and those are number are in billion, maybe 3 to 4 billion people are kind of like using Android. Okay, yeah. Now 3 to 4 billion is a too much. Okay, yeah. So Google, like right now I'm kind of like using this Poco X7 Pro, which has a kind of like Android operating system. Okay, so Google already have kind of like a data regarding about me, regarding about whatever the photo that I uploaded on Google Photos, whatever the kind of like assembly, the stuff, everything, location history, kind of like everything, like a, in your mobile phone, it has a kind of like so much amount of data that what should you supposed to do, where you go, did you go to the kind of like hospital or not, and things and that. Google has a kind of like a immense amount of data. You can't even imagine how much data that Google has it. And as I mentioned, having more data, that means you could analyze more, and you could kind of like predict more, you could kind of like make yourself more. Okay, so basically I will be like, I'm just kind of like ambitious regarding about that. Google might not think about that, they could kind of like predict the possible future, but they could if they want. Okay, they just have to change the strategy and things and that, and maybe within a kind of like a couple of years they would kind of like build such a thing. Okay, yeah. So I am not the only one who would kind of like build such AI that could predict the future. Definitely not. Google might be that particular person, particular thing. Okay, but whatever. Okay, and like I'm not gonna try to kind of like compete with the Google and things and that. Definitely, I'm not really thinking about that. But still, what I'm saying is that within a kind of like a 10-20 year, things might gonna happen. Yeah, it's not really that key. It's not really possible. It is possible. Maybe yeah, like till 2050, this is kind of like a somewhat something very much common. By the way, we could have kind of like something much more, because the right now humanity is actually growing so much faster with the AI technology. We cannot able to predict what might gonna happen next, and after we kind of like predict the possible future, oh my god. Yeah, so much, so many things. Whatever, this is kind of like something very long stuff already. Okay, let's jump into the question. The question says that what should Adam learn from every artifact? Well, Adam will kind of like learn behavior pattern of every person, what they think, what they kind of like think about stuff, emotions, behavior, their human behavior pattern and things and that. It could kind of like it could kind of like learn from every artifact. All right, this is it. I have to end here. Thank you.